Some time ago, I did a video on the personification of Drogon and how he had such human characteristics and even his own character arc. In it, I talked about how Drogon even took on the same character traits as Daenerys. Today, I want to talk about all three dragons, Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion, and talk about the symbolism behind each dragon. When the three dragons were first hatched, Daenerys decided to name them each after a man that was very important to her. Drogon for her husband and first love, Khal Drogo. Rhaegal for her oldest brother, Rhaegar, a man she never knew, but he is directly responsible for her having to go into exile. And Viserion, named after Viserys, the older brother she grew up with and who was responsible for her setting her onto her path to the Iron Throne. Let's start with Drogon, who ended up being her favorite out of the three dragons. She loved him best, and as I said before, her favoritism caused him to step up as a leader, and he also took on attributes of her personality.
Chains and mother of dragons. Sentence you to die. Dracarys.
Drogon was named after the only man in her life who hadn't let her down. Her marriage to Khal Drogo started off rough, but once she decided to give her all to the relationship and they fell in love, he was her catalyst for growth as a character. When she first met him, she was a frightened little girl and was a pawn for her older brother Viserys. She was sad to hear that she was going to be sold into marriage, especially since she grew up thinking she was going to marry Viserys because her family traditionally married brother to sister. Once she got to know Khal Drogo and learned his language, she began to assimilate into his culture and gain confidence she never had before. Once she was Khaleesi, she was no longer Viserys' pawn, and she truly felt that change when she became pregnant with Khal Drogo's child. She went from thinking that her life had to be what Viserys envisioned it to be, to realizing she could make her own way. So being married to Khal Drogo made her come into her own as a would-be queen and leader. When she lost both Khal Drogo and her child, she could have given up. Instead, she decided to take a chance on hatching those three dragon eggs and creating a new identity for herself, Mother of Dragons.
I am Daenerys Stormborn, of House Targaryen, of the blood of old Valyria. I am the dragon's daughter.
The eggs were given to her as a wedding gift. They were worth a lot of money. She could have used them to go somewhere and live a drama-free life. But with Khal Drogo's death, she realized that they were worth more than just money. And she was right. While the dragons were still growing, it was the simple fact that she brought dragons back into the world that grew her reputation.
Mother of Dragons, on behalf of the warlocks of Karth, I welcome you.
Your dragons were born. Our magic was born again.
It is strongest in their presence.
And they are strongest in yours.
Dracarys.
But once they were grown, her reputation was cemented as the Dragon Queen. So Drogon was her favorite and named after the man who made her into who she was. Khaleesi, the Unburnt, Mother of Dragons. And unlike his namesake, he was the only dragon to survive. He even survived past Daenerys. And after she died, he took her body and buried it. Or burnt it, whatever. All of her dragons were named after men who were dead, but Drogon was named after the man who made her a queen. And I think subconsciously Daenerys saw Drogon as her equal. Next is Rhaegal, named after her brother Rhaegar. His actions started the war that led to Robert's rebellion, and which also led to all of the Targaryens except Daenerys and Viserys being killed. Viserys and Daenerys survived, and they barely made it out of Westeros into exile. Daenerys never knew Rhaegar. He was dead before she was born. All she knew of him was stories that were told to her.
I was thinking about all the times your brother made me go with him down from the Red Keep into the streets of King's Landing.
Why?
He liked to walk among the people. He liked to sing to them.
He was good.
He was very good. Viserys never told you.
He told me Rhaegar was good at killing people. And what did you do with the money?
One time he gave it to an orphanage in Flea Bottom.
But before he supposedly kidnapped Lyanna Stark, he was known as a handsome and dashing prince. And I think Daenerys held on to that portrait of her brother, choosing not to judge him for his worst mistakes.
My brother Rhaegar. Everyone told me he was decent and kind. He liked to sing. Gave money to poor children.
Rhaegal did not have much of a standout personality like Drogon, but he was the dragon that Jon Snow always rode. And I find it highly ironic that Jon Snow unknowingly rode the dragon that was named after his biological father.
They were married in secret. After Rhaegar fell on the trident, she had a son. Robert would have murdered the baby if he ever found out, and Lyanna knew it. So the last thing she did, as she bled to death on her birthing bed, was give the boy to her brother, Ned Stark, to raise as his bastard. My real name is Aegon Targaryen.
I think that has something to do with Jon's ability to take to dragon riding so quickly. He was a Targaryen, but he was also connected to the dragon through its namesake. In the show, they showed Jon connecting with Drogon. Almost like Daenerys was looking for Drogon to give his approval of Jon. And it almost seemed like once he could smell him, he could tell he was Targaryen. Like he knew what Jon and Daenerys did not. One can only assume that Rhaegal had the same instincts and that he knew, maybe not that him and Jon were connected through Rhaegar, but that Jon was a Targaryen. I also find it interesting that Rhaegal died when Jon wasn't riding him. Maybe if Jon was riding him, they could have maneuvered out of the way, like Drogon did. But he died, separated from Jon, just like Rhaegar. And finally, there is Viserion, named after Viserys, aka the weakest link. Viserys bullied and used Daenerys, but he is also the only reason she began her path to the Iron Throne. Before she was sold to Khal Drogo, all she wanted to do was go back to the house they grew up in when they first went into exile and live a peaceful life. But no, Viserys wanted to reclaim what he felt was rightfully his. So while Daenerys was assimilating to her new life as the wife of a Dothraki Khal, Viserys was having a hissy fit because he couldn't get his way.
Does loyalty mean nothing to you?
It means everything to me.
And yet here you stand.
And yet here I stand.
He expected for Khal Drogo to marry Daenerys and then immediately sail to Westeros and get the Iron Throne back for him.
I have no interest in hospitality or comfort. I'll stay with Drogo until he fulfills his end of the bargain and I have my crown.
Not taking into account that not only had the Dothraki never been in a boat before, but that they considered the sea poisonous. They were horse people, and it was more than a notion to get them to cross the sea to fight for someone else, bride or no bride. Viserys was entitled. He felt like because he wanted it, he should get it. it never once entered his mind that he was going to have to earn the Dothraki's respect and convince them to go to Westeros. He was a king, and they had to listen to him. He could have used his sister's growing popularity in his favor. Instead, he was jealous that she was taking precedence over him. So he disrespected the Dothraki by bringing a weapon into Vaes Dothrak, and disrespected Khal Drogo by demanding that he fight for him immediately. So Khal Drogo gave him the golden crown he wanted. Well, it was no surprise that the dragon named after Viserys would be the first one to die. Killed by the Night King and made into his little bitch. Dragons were made of magic, and the Night King used Viserion's magic to tear down the wall. Because the wall wasn't just made of ice, it was made with magic spells that kept the army of the dead from crossing it. Now, how did that white get past the wall and into Castle Black? Don't ask me. Maybe the castle counted as part of the wall. So Viserion, named after the entitled, ignorant brother, died and became a tool for the Night King. He also kept Jon from entering the Godswood so that he could kill the Night King. And finally died again once the Night King was destroyed. Side note, I find it unfair that the dragon's fire was enough to tear down the wall, but not enough to kill the Night King. Why was their magic more powerful once they were undead? Growing up, there were a lot of superstitious beliefs repeated by the Southern women in my life. One of which is, be careful what you call a child, because that can go on to influence his actual life and or personality. Everything from calling the baby bad to who that baby was named after. And since Daenerys counted the dragons as her only children, for one, she brought that into her life by believing a witch who lied about saving her husband. And two, she doomed two of her so-called children by naming them after men who had let her down. Rhaegar for starting a war that had upended her life before she was even born, and Viserys for using her as currency so that he could start a war. She really didn't have many choices to choose from since every other man in her life disappointed her too, but she could have made something up. It's not guaranteed that that would have saved her dragon's lives, but the evidence points to it being bad luck to name your dragons after people who had already let you down. So yeah, Daenerys lost the two dragons that were named after her brothers, but could really depend on the one named after her husband. Do you think Daenerys should have named her dragon something else? Tell me what she should have made up in the comments below. If you enjoy my videos, please support my channel by subscribing, joining my membership, or donating through Ko-fi, Cashapp, or Super Thanks. Or you can purchase merch related to my fantasy novel, or just buy my fantasy novel, The Fairy Princess. And let's continue the conversation in the Fairy Princess Facebook group. All links in the description. Thanks.